are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. This is Are You Serious Sports. We hope that you guys are making it a good one. We know that we are as well. Is there been anything in the news today? Man, what a day. What a day. I don't really know how to start it or what to say in the start of the show. Zach, our producer, is joining us. But what a day, man. Huge episode, obviously, in store for you tonight. So many words and so many things that can be said, will be said, should be said. But if you miss it somehow, some way, I don't know how you did, but in case, Myles Brennan has announced that he is stepping away from football. There are multiple feelings that I personally have about the situation. Some good, even a lot of good, some bad. I know that a lot of people inside the chat, people that listen to us on YouTube, Facebook, audio podcast, XM radio, whatever it may be, will say that I had some kind of bias towards the young man in Myles Brennan. That I do not. And you could say what you want, but I'm going to give my opinion. My heartfelt opinion goes, or my heartfelt sincerity does go out to Myles. Man, you've been here since, and Myles has committed or been committed or was committed to LSU since the President Obama administration. Les Miles was still the head coach when he first committed to LSU. He's been here a long time, but there's a lot going around. We're not going to get into all of the minutia. You know the young man's story. I don't have to preach it to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to be very quick on these announcements and paying the bills around this thing so we can get started, because we do have a quarterback race that is underway. What did we see today? What are we expecting to see Wednesday? And an announcement or some sourcing, whatever you may want to call it. I really don't care. LSU has not made a decision on their quarterback. No one, the report about Jaden being announced the starter is not true, nor was it us, and we said that in the tweet earlier today. But we will get to as much as that as we can, and we'll be breaking that down as well as we do every Monday with our good buddy and our good friend, Carter the Power Bryant. Also, LSU was left out of the AP poll for the first time since 2000. The last time that happened, there was a guy by the name of Nick Saban that was the head coach. So we will get into all of that here tonight. So before we get started, we're going to do this very, very, very quickly. Everybody on Facebook, do us a favor. So many of you are watching us live right now here on Facebook. Hit the like, hit the share it to all of those social media pages. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe button and notification bell. If you're listening to us on XM radio or you're listening to us on the audio podcast platform, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe to our AYS message board, AYSSnetwork.com. That's AYSSnetwork.com. Go to the forum and subscribe today for $7. All right, Zach, let's do this very quickly. Let's pay these bills. We got a lot to talk about with Myles Brennan, the quarterback race. Practice was today. Who looked good? Did Jaden Daniels, and has Jaden Daniels really worked on his accuracy? A lot of people believe that he has. So let's pay these bills, and let's talk about our good friends over at GM Varno & Sons and betonline.ag. We talk quarterback and Myles Brennan in 1 minute. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. With over 65 years of experience, nobody is better equipped to service in your vehicle than GM Varnado and Sons. RV repair, big rig overhauls, motorhome chassis, routine maintenance, tire rotations, tire sales. No job is too big or too small over at GM. If you break down the side of the road in the greater Baton Rouge area, they will come and get you. And the best thing about that is that they can come and get you, and then they can bring your vehicle back to their shop and start the repairs right then. Again, GM Varnado and Sons, go see them over at 2500 Fuller Boulevard. Give them a call at 225-664-9992, 225-664-9992. Tell them your good friend Blake Ruffino sent you on by. We do have a lot of comments flying in. Our financial advisor, look at that man right there, Mike Bazile. Look at that tie. Made us a lot of money, me and Megan, a lot of money last year. So shout out to Mike Bazile over at Northwestern Mutual. He says, going to be a heck of a QB race. I agree with him there. So let's get this thing started, y'all. Let's get this thing started, y'all. Edward O says, I feel bad for Myles. Kelly kind of played him, but he's worried about winning, not making people happy. Ed, Zach, can we bring this down, brother? Zach hit something and he forgot to bring it down. Ed, Brian Kelly did not play him. So let me make this very clear. When Myles Brennan went in the transfer portal, the same week as the Alabama week, the same week, and then Ed O finished it out. Myles Brennan was still in the portal. We all know this story. We don't have to rehash that. Like, you know it. I know it. There's a reason you're here. We all know the situation with Myles Brennan. Brian Kelly's hired. He returns. He puts out the Wolf of Wall Street video of, I'm not effing leaving, all that stuff. The NIL deals. We all know that story. I'm staying on the field. Whether you believe what we do or what we say is biased towards Myles Brennan, guys, this will be the third season that he, in the offseason, was on the LSU roster and hasn't played it down. And I told you last night there was a reason, and if you missed the show last night, we have it on our YouTube channel. You can go catch a short clip if you don't have a lot of time. Myles Brennan was getting passed up by Garrett Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels, especially now that Jaden Daniels has become a little bit more accurate in the intermediate passing game. Guys, we're there. Stop questioning us if what we're seeing is accurate. Obviously, Brian Kelly's seeing the same thing. I said this last night. It bears repeating today. Myles did not have a good scrimmage this past Thursday. I fully believe that a scenario happened last Thursday when Garrett Nussmeier was injured, in which I believe that he was. Myles Brennan got a very fair shake at cracking in the first team and being the starter at LSU at quarterback. Guys, he didn't play well. So you might have the rumors, you may have all of these different things that are swirling around LSU football. The truth of it all is, and has always been, Myles, since the injuries, while freak injuries, has regressed from what we saw in 2020 versus Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Missouri. You do got to give Myles this. One thing is 1,000% certain. You have to give him that when he put his body on the line trying to score against Missouri, and he never could find his way back. There are a lot of questions, and have been a lot of questions for me in the past, which made people believe that I was biased against Myles Brennan. But guys, you all know what happened a season ago, why he wasn't here. You heard the rumors. You heard Myles Brennan even talking about those rumors this offseason about tripping over a flip-flop on a boating dock. At this point, there's no rumors and speculation. He has talked about that when asked the question to the media. That is not a leader. That's not a leader. I question his want to. I will say this. In 2019, we had Steve Ensminger in an interview. I think it was the week of the Peach Bowl when LSU went to Atlanta and absolutely demolished Oklahoma. And I want to say it was Brody Miller of The Advocate that asked Steve Ensminger about Myles Brennan and the transition from Joe Burrow to Myles Brennan. The exact quote that Steve Ensminger made, and it will always live in my head, is Steve Ensminger said that Myles needs to stop worrying about hunting and fishing and get serious about football. The question around Myles will always be, how serious was he? That is his legacy. I don't like that he's stepping away. I don't think it benefits LSU in any way. There's no remote reason whatsoever that this helps LSU. Guys, injuries are a big deal in college football. Myles has been a part of those injuries. And you having to play freshman quarterbacks or inexperienced quarterbacks. But regardless of all of that, he got passed up on the field. There's no off the field issues. There's no things going on. Some, something out there in the ether that people just hate Myles Brennan. And to his credit, man, the man built a cult here at LSU. He's got a lot of loyal fans. He got beat out. There was a reason why Ed brought in Joe Burrow. There's a reason why Brian Kelly brought in Jaden Daniels. Sometimes you have to read the writing on the wall. And today, when the media went out to practice and when we go out there, he is not running with the first team when Garrett and us are there. He's not. He didn't in the spring game. He didn't in the entire spring. So I know some of you are probably destroying me in these comments, and I understand it. I fully understand it. The truth is the truth. You got to applaud Myles for sticking around as long as he did. He could have gone to USM, but there were some offers on the table for him to return. That being a starting position, that being NIL money, and it all brings into one thing. It all culminates into one thing. Whether it be Canes, walk-ons, Duck Dynasty, he got it. He got it. Good for him. I don't blame him in the slightest. But I will tell you, and this is going to be something, Enrico said no one listened to you honestly. Well, maybe you should. So there's 650 people in this chat right now. Maybe you should, when we go out to practice, and say that he's not doing well. Guys, there's no bias whatsoever. You guys do know that it behooves us as a media group and a podcast and someone who covers LSU. It benefits us to run out here and say Myles is the best, Myles this, Myles that, because majority of the fan base either, number one, wants him to start, number two, thinks he was the best quarterback on the roster, which he wasn't at this moment, or number three, if we were doing this for clicks, we would be on the Myles Brennan train. That's not what we're doing this for. Our eyes do not deceive us. Guys, I've been to a lot of college practices in my life. I know when you cannot complete a short hitch because you don't have zip on your fastball, and Kayshon Boutte is waiting for the ball to get there. He waited so long, Moses came down with the 10 Commandments twice before the ball even got to Kayshon Boutte in the last scrimmage. It took the ball so long to get to Kayshon Boutte when Myles threw it. Molasses. You could empty 2 molasses bottles. Syrup can be poured out of Aunt Jemima's tube. You're worried about Jaden, and I get that you guys are worried about Jaden. I get some of you are worried about Nussmeier. You should be. You 1,000% should be. I do think for LSU, if there is one caveat and one thing, I think it's time to move on from this. Sometimes you have situations where, and I applaud Brian Kelly in doing this. I fully applaud Brian Kelly for coming out here and telling Myles Brennan he's not going to be the starter. Kudos to him for telling Myles, look, buddy, you're not going to make it. So, and I know that there's a lot of comments flying in here, Zach. We can get to as much of them as we can. But the bottom line is, guys, this is stuff that we saw during the spring. Nothing changed. The timing and the routes didn't change. The things going on off the field didn't really change. You know, we have videos and pictures of Myles Brennan not being around the team, going to the same place that he got in the incident literally a season ago, literally on the date that Myles got injured and broke his arm. Literally. He was back in Toledo Bend. That's not how you lead a team. I think Myles has a very bright future. If that young man wants to be a coach, guys, you know why I do this? You know why coaches coach? Because we couldn't do what these guys do on the field. That's just the truth. If he goes into coaching, he goes into radio, he does whatever he wants, good luck to him. But we have to be objective. And the objective truth was he was getting beat out. Now, let me flip over this to the other side. So just to give everyone a caveat, and to give everybody something to look forward to. So what does this really mean? What does this really mean? I think, and we keep talking about Jaden Daniels, we keep talking about Garrett Nussmeier. The person it affects the most is neither one of those two men, because they're battling for one. Myles wasn't up there battling for one. The person it affects the most is your five-star quarterback in Walker Howard, because now you got to bring him more up to speed, because God willing, one of those two quarterbacks in Garrett and Jaden goes down, you're one injury away. You're one helmet being taken off away. Guys, you do know if one of those guys gets injured, and knock on wood, let's hope that they don't, and one of their helmets fly off during a play or after a play, they got to come out for a play, and Walker would have to come in. You got to get this young man ready to roll. He wasn't taking those reps before today. He wasn't taking those reps. You got to give it to him now. The biggest thing that all of this says, it's not about the loyalty of Myles Brennan. It's not about him being here, because, guys, loyalty to a program and being here for 6 years means absolutely nothing. It means something to some extent, but on the field, that means nothing. I don't see any of you in here clamoring and loving and preaching and talking so well about fifth-year, sixth-year senior Todd Harris. I don't see you talking the same way about Jeray Jenkins. I don't see you guys in the chats talking about Jay Ward. I don't see you talking about the young men who Ed Orgeron didn't give an opportunity to, and Joe Fouché, Greg Brooks, and Jared Bernard-Converse. I don't see you in the comments talking about those young men and them always wanting to put on the purple and gold. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. What does it mean on the field? Guys, like I said last night, and I know some of you probably didn't see it. If you missed it, go back and watch the clip from last night. If LSU were to start a game today, it's Jaden Daniels. However, so everybody pump your brakes. Oh, no. Oh, God, here comes Blake saying it's Jaden. Hold your horses. Hold your horses. Wednesday, LSU has a scrimmage. Let's see what happens at quarterback. Because there's a very real scenario that Garrett Nussmeier goes out there, and you could say not all you want. I don't give a shit. It's the truth. You didn't believe us about Myles. Are you going to believe about it now? It's not your – guys, this isn't an opinion. When he's taking first-team reps in practices and scrimmages, and he's the first guy out there, that's not opinion. It's not even remotely close. Garrett can go out here Wednesday and do some special things. If he does that, there could be more of a battle. My hope is that one of those young men separate themselves. There's another scenario, though, that I keep thinking about and can't stop thinking about is if it's Jane Daniels, does Garrett go in the portal? How do you manipulate this now if you're Brian Kelly? Because now this is a very real scenario, right? This isn't something that, oh, well, if he does this, it's not barbershop talk. It's not bar talk. This is a real life scenario. If Jane Daniels is announced the starter, does Garrett leave? Very real. I think Garrett's going to come out and do some special things Wednesday. I hope, though, that Garrett does not try to force things to try to overtake him, but I want one of these guys to separate themselves. I see a lot of comments in here. In reference to when do I think an announcement is going to be made? Guys, I have no idea. I think it could come as early as Wednesday. It could come as late as September the 4th at 6 o'clock. I don't know. And I will be honest to tell you, I don't know. The Myles Brennan's biggest fan, Crying Belly, says Todd Harris isn't good at all. I'm sick of people saying, oh, why not Todd? Because Todd got 1,000 yards thrown on him. Myles Brennan hasn't played 4 games, has not started 4 games. He's been here more years than games that he started. And Myles Brennan, you can clamor all you want. And I know a lot of people in here, I see the comments. Myles Brennan's a quitter and all this kind of stuff. I'm not going there. What I will do is let you have your opinion. I will tell you, I do not believe the leadership skills that he showed to this team was of SEC caliber. I remember a lot of you saying Terrace Marshall quit. Well, Blake, it was, during the season. So Myles went in the portal during the Alabama week. Don't have an emotional take. What are the facts? What are the facts? He threw for 300 yards against Vandy. He threw against 300 yards against Miss State. He threw for 300 yards against Missouri. Guys, those 3 defenses were in the 110 ranges of defenses ranked in college football that season. He couldn't stay healthy. Leadership is a big thing here. We're watching the game this weekend, right? Like we're watching, what was the game? Was it Green Bay and somebody else? Green Bay and San Francisco was playing. Guys, Danny Edling's still in the league. He's not the most physical. He doesn't have the arm like Myles Brennan. He doesn't have that good of an arm. He's deadly accurate at times. He showed that in the NFL, and he continues to play. Guys, what's weird about this, Danny Etling has been on an active NFL roster, more years than what Myles Brennan has been available to play for LSU. Guys, this is the 3rd year he's out of it. He's not available. The best ability is availability. Never forget that. I will transition here because we got Carter the Power Bryant coming up in 3 minutes to talk more of this Myles Brennan stuff. I do think Walker Howard is going to take more reps. I do think Jaden is the first guy ran out there Wednesday with the first team. I could be dead wrong there. Bryant, because of what was going on in the media world today, there's a very strong chance that he runs Garrett Nessmeyer out there just in pettiness. I'm not saying he's petty. I don't know what he's going to do. But kind of like the Ed Orgeron thing, running Leonard Fournette out there and giving him the first touch of the ball game. I don't think Brian Kelly's going to do that. He doesn't have time to waste here. He's got to get these guys first-team reps against a first-team defense. What are we going to see in the scrimmage? I will tell you that I thought, and I do believe that Jaden and Malik Neighbors have a very interesting relationship when it comes to on the field. Guys, Malik Neighbors has not been stopped this entire offseason. Guys, they can't guard him. Now, you might think to yourself, well, that might be bad for the DBs. Not necessarily true, because we've seen guys like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry all have these kinds of off seasons leading up until the first week of the season. And what did they do? They balled out. I think that there's some serious rapport being built with Jaden Daniels and Malik. What happens Wednesday? That's the only thing that matters at this point. Jawan Hearns says WWL Sports reported that JD will be named the starting quarterback. No, they didn't. I'm not trying to. LSU didn't announce it. Rico says Blake is saying Etling is available, quote unquote. I think he's trying to get him laid. Yeah, Rico, that's not what I'm trying to do. But what I will say, he's more available than Myles. Guys, this isn't, what's crazy about this, and I know a lot of people are upset that he's leaving, but man, with all due respect, he wasn't ready to go. He wasn't ready to go. And our next guest, after the scrimmage, I called Carter and said, man, there's no way, and I don't know if he wants our, private conversations to be aired out, but I said this to him, and I'll say it here. Myles wasn't ready. Myles wasn't ready for that smoke. Took too long to throw the ball. Everybody's like, oh, look at the pass to Bryant Thomas Jr. Guys, he was sacked. We have the video and photo to prove it. But I do think it's funny that somebody told me to go punch myself in the face last night after I said that Myles Brennan wasn't going to be your starter. Somebody's got to eat crow, and I'm not going to eat it tonight. I'm not going to say I've never had it, because that's not true. I've had crow and egg on my face. Pause for some bad takes that I've had. So let's do this, guys. Let's get to Carter the Power Bryant. So many of you in here joining us. 625, 633, y'all? Man, come on. Can I get 300 of you to like the page, like it on Facebook, like it on Twitter, or like it on YouTube, hit the subscribe and notification bell, share it to your social media pages? Can I get y'all to do that? I appreciate it. So we're going to talk to Carter the Power Bryant about Myles Brennan, him stepping away from football. But let's pay these bills very quickly. Let's talk about our good friends over at Gramco. Guys, we return in 1 minute exactly. What does Carter think about this quarterback race and Myles Brennan stepping away? We'll be right back. Guys, I've got to talk to you about our good friends over at Gramco. They are the Delta 8 company based out of the state of Florida. They're founded by college football junkies just like you and I am not sure if you're familiar with Delta 8, but you need to be. Gramco is the absolute leader in this field, and they have phenomenal products that I just need to tell you about. First off is the Wake and Bake coffee that is absolutely spectacular. The gummies are as well, as they're the best in the market. So go to thegramco.com right now and use the promo code AYS25. That's thegramco.com, AYS25 promo code to get 25% off of your order. Jump on this fast, as it is perfect for holidays, anniversaries, and everyday use. Gramco is hemp-derived and completely legal inside of the state of Louisiana. No medical card is needed, and shipping is very discreet. You must be 21 years older to order. Again, that's thegramco.com. Use that promo code AYS25. Ladies and gentlemen, Carter the Power Bryant is in the building. Carter, is there anything that happened today in reference to LSU football?
They were outside the top 25. I know that's a big topic, and that's obviously a really good thing if you're an LSU fan, because it is true. This is the first time as an LSU fan you really can't say nobody believes in you, right? You know how like coaches always say that? Like, I get so sick and tired of like Nick Saban using like the rat poison thing. It's not rat poison. Everyone thinks you're going to win every game, right?
Right.
LSU, if you're an LSU fan, you can honestly kind of sort of say us against the world, right? You can kind of sort of say that. not in the top 25 in the AP or the coaches poll. But obviously, Blake, the big story here is Myles Brennan is leaving. And I will sing your praises here. You called it. You did. You that's all there is to it. You're right
just
about
a second why I bask in this glory. Continue.
And Blake, I'm a straight shooter, right? I love my Tigers. And I think a lot of people think you have like a personal vendetta against Myles.
I don't.
I feel like you and I know each other pretty well. I don't think you do. I really don't. And I know like it's tough because what we do as college football fans sometimes is we do get very emotionally invested into players. And there's a lot of people that connect with Myles Brennan, right? With his connections in Louisiana and his, him being here so long and waiting his turn and all the bad luck and all those different things. And every single person in here wanted Myles to succeed. And obviously everybody in here would have preferred Myles as, the longtime LSUer to actually be the guy. That's how I was. I like Myles a lot, right? But the truth here is, your best ability is availability. And this isn't kicking dirt on Myles's grave. I don't think that's what this is. And I think most people are going to love Myles, forever. He was a part of a national championship team. Well, he didn't play. The backup quarterback is oftentimes the second most important person on the team. It wasn't on that particular team. That would be Jamar Chase, Clyde, or Jefferson. But, for me personally, you should still love Myles Brennan. Two things can be once. Yes, it didn't work out. Yes, he wasn't available. Yes, he had started sliding in practice, and you saw it in the actual visual portions of practice. You also heard it behind closed doors that Nuss and Jaden Daniels started working more with the ones and twos, and Myles was mostly exclusively working with the 3-ish, sometimes 2-ish, and sometimes ones. So, I feel bad for Myles. I feel bad that he's never gotten this opportunity. And I hope that LSU fans will love this guy forever, even though it didn't work out for him because of his health. So all those things can be true at once. And, it's just part of this game that we love.
Carter, there's opinion, there's facts, and there is just plain old emotional takes.
Right.
I don't feel like I had an emotional take. Carter, I could dump out 2 Aunt Jemima molasses maple syrup tubes in a time now that it takes him to throw a hitch route. It's slow.
Right.
He doesn't have the zip on his fastball. And so my point would be is it might be conjecture for me to say that it's my opinion, but when Brian Kelly goes to him and says, look, buddy, you're not going to start, then what is it?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I will say this about Myles. I appreciate him for being here as long as he has. Brother, he committed to LSU under Les Miles. There's nobody that probably has more LSU stories than Myles Brennan. And great for him. I do think that it's kind of a little bit of a lack of leadership to quit now because it's like I'm taking my ball and going home too. That's my thoughts. I would never quit on a team. That's the way that I roll. But we'll see. What do you think that this makes for Jaden? Jaden, in my opinion, has gotten better at the intermediate passing that we saw from the spring at an Arizona State. Carter, if he has gotten better at that particular part of his game, just how deadly can this team be?
Yeah, so it's important to understand, okay, before we continue, that quarterback discourse is always going to be the most toxic, right? No matter what you say about any quarterback, you've been called this. I know for sure I've been called this. I'm biased towards every quarterback. I've been called biased towards every quarterback. I think I've been called biased towards Andrew Hatch. Like, I think every single quarterback. Carter, you want Tommy Hudson to start, don't you?
Hey, now, if he does.
Yeah, Tommy, you want Tommy Hudson right now. You want Alan Risher in his current state to start right now.
You want freshman Jarrett Lee.
You know, Jared, and by the way, Alan Risher, I miss his media career. He was so great. He did so many like student radio appearances with us, and I thought it was like the coolest thing. It's like a young radio person. Alan is very interesting. But the truth is, always understand this, and this goes for anybody. You can do whatever you want, but breathe in, breathe out when it comes to quarterback discourse, because there's so many different like toxic things that are said about each and every quarterback. But what I'm about to say about Jaden is just truth, right? You do bring up that his intermediate passing has gotten better. Obviously, you know, they're reworking the footwork. They're reworking a lot of different things.
And he's got more zip on his fastball.
Yeah, it does look better. Now, I have spoken to different quarterback coaches, and I did include a conversation recently in a Jaden Daniels video. My last Jaden Daniels video, if you want to see a conversation I have with a quarterback coach, he is very concerned about, you know, Jaden's throwing motion. But, you know, the truth is that's not all that was never a strength of his game anyway, right? You're not going to watch him and think, oh, that's Patrick Mahomes throwing the football. That's Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. That never was his strength to begin with. But this is also true as well, Blake. If Jaden was a decent intermediate passer, if he was a good intermediate passer, he would have already ran away with this quarterback battle. Based on his experience, based on his mobility, it's true. If he was at that point, he would have dusted everybody in that room. If you factor in his experience, you factor in, you know, how he deals
Certainly
with the rush.
dusted Miles, you know.
Yeah, he would. Because of his mobility, right? But that is one thing that's held him back from moving ahead of the rest of the room. And if he does in these next couple of weeks, has all of that down pat, he will be the guy that starts versus Florida State. And I do feel he will be the guy that starts versus Florida State. But I still think Garrett Nussmeier has a shot. I do, because he has thrown the football the best. Now, that doesn't mean he's been the absolute best. He's had different levels of success in some practices that we've all seen, in some games and scrimmages and practices that we haven't seen, right? You know this, Blake. So it is very interesting. But if Jaden puts that together, you can win games with quarterbacks that go, 17 for 27 for 210 yards or something like that. As long as you don't turn the football over, extend.
Yeah, it's called. I get the Georgia take. Maybe Georgia's a bad thought process, but I mean, what's the excuse for Stetson? Because the last time I checked, Stetson still had to try to score 40 against Bama in the SEC championship game. You got to have guys that can go out there and sling it too. I will say this. I agree with you, Carter, on he would dust some people. I think that there's even some that don't fully understand how good Garrett's looked too. He's made some very good throws.
Agreed.
And it's funny when you talk about the throwing motion. This is every time someone a quarterback's coach. I talked to an OC today about Myles. Okay, and he's OC at the FCS level. He's kind of semi-retiring, but he's been an OC in the SEC for a long time.
Yeah, he knows what he's talking about.
He knows what he's talking about. Yeah. And he goes, I stopped giving a shit about throwing motion when I saw Phillip Rivers' ass get selected in the first round. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. And it's a little bit true, but I do agree. If his intermediate passing game does get better with his experience, I think Brian Kelly feels safer with him.
I do. Yeah, I agree with that. I do. I agree with that.
But let's talk about Wednesday. Carter, there's a very real scenario that Garrett Nussmeier can run out here Wednesday and start dominating everybody, and it's over. And we don't, but here's a question I have for you. Does today with Myles Brennan leaving kind of confirm to you that there's going to be some two quarterback system? Because if Garrett does start, they're going to put Jaden in the red zone with a zone read. I fully believe that. Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy, especially considering Nuss, he did have that red zone turnover versus Arkansas.
That was so bad.
Yeah, it was a bad throw. But Yeah, Jaden does give you some things in the red zone that, are very valuable, such as the zone read game. And Jaden, I'll share a few things that I like about Jaden as a quarterback, right? He fills out a 4-man rush really well, right? He's really comfortable.
Exceptionally well.
Yeah, that's probably his best strength,
No
right?
doubt. No
Is
doubt.
he's really good at reading, pass rush lanes and alleys and all of that. And so that's something that he's really good at. Some people, I saw some very smart people in here talk about touchdown to interception ratio. It was actually really good for Jaden until like the final half of the season.
Agreed.
He threw, I believe, 7 of his 10 interceptions from the
in the last 7 games, right?
Yes, in the back half of the year, right? Now, you shouldn't throw them. A lot of the interceptions were bad. We did a film study on it. Most of them were his fault. But, for 2.5-ish years, depends on how you want to look at the 2020 season, he was a very turnover-averse quarterback. Now, does he tuck and run probably a little too often than you would like to think? Yeah, he does. But that comes with time. Some quarterbacks, that's just not who they are. They don't like sitting, because if you sit, you can have strip sacks. You can have a lot of different things happen. It's just not who he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Garrett Nussmeier, he does give you a verticality to the offense as far as throwing is concerned, because Nuss isn't afraid to throw it. Like,
he is not.
He's not. And one thing that makes him very interesting is we've never really, this goes back to his high school days. Garrett Nussmeier doesn't scramble a lot, right? And I felt like at times
he scrambles to throw it, right?
Yes. There were a few times last year where he should have just tucked and ran and took the yards in front of him, or take a more simple throw. Now, there are some things specifically about Garrett Nussmeier that I find to be very interesting. When he rolls out right, it does tend to sometimes cut the field in half, and it could lead to turnovers. You saw that a few times in his high school tape, and, you saw it in the spring game. The throw was a little late, and Jay Ward probably should have picked that off. But there's obviously, some very specific things. Now, if you are watching this and you just happen to be a super huge Garrett Nussmeier fan, this is one thing that I think really helps out Garrett Nussmeier, is we don't know his ceiling yet, right? I feel like with Jaden Daniels, he can be very good. We don't know what Garrett Nussmeier can be just yet. Historically, true freshman quarterback data is very unreliable, especially if you look at quarterbacks that have been drafted in the NFL. So Garrett Nussmeier's best, we haven't seen it yet. His best may not be all that great, but we just haven't seen it yet. With Jaden, you kind of know what you're getting. And with Jaden, what you're getting is someone that can lead you to a 9-win season. Honestly, he's good enough to do that. So, that's something that LSU is probably juggling right now.
If whoever leads you to 9 wins and you feel the most comfortable, Carter, sign me up.
Right.
Because
yeah, that's
neither one of these two men is number 1-4. They're not. Now I'm going to ask you this question.
Interesting.
They're not. From a talent aspect, it's not close.
Yeah, I see Walker's name popping up in the chat. Very interesting.
Biggest arm, Walker Howard. Most accurate, Walker Howard. Mobility to throw the football, Walker Howard. I think from an IQ perspective, I think I'm going to give them all a wash. You don't play as much football as Jaden Daniels, and you have a low football IQ. It's not how that works. The more you play, the more there's nothing he hasn't seen. Okay? Even to the fact, Carter, he beat a team last year in UCLA that LSU couldn't on the road. So I do throw that in there. Walker Howard is the most talented. He's not the most ready. That's just the truth. I do want to ask you, though, in your experience in covering college football or football in general, now that Myles has stepped aside, the biggest person in this room that it affects is not Jaden and Nuss. It's Walker Howard.
Thoughts? Why do you say that? I'm interested.
I think that it's Walker Howard because I'll give you a couple of what-if scenarios, and I hate the what-if, but just to play it for just a minute. What if Jane Daniels is announced and Garrett hits the portal? Now what? Okay.
Well, yeah.
Now where it would be Myles Brennan, it's not Myles Brennan anymore. It's Walker Howard. God willing, God bless it, and knock on wood, if one of these quarterbacks goes down, okay, like in 2018 when Myles had back spasms against Alabama and Joe Burrow had a dislocated shoulder and was getting hit by guys like Fadarian Mathis with a dislocated shoulder, what then? So my point is if one of those young men go down, Walker's one injury away, or here's the biggest thing. He's one play away from a helmet flying off where the quarterback's got to go out and he's got to come in. Carter, what about the snap? What about, are you going to let him hand the ball off? Do you have to call a timeout? It does make there to be a lot of big differences and a lot of concerns. Here's the biggest thing today. He took first team reps for the first time. And my God.
Let's go, Walker.
Blake Ruffino and Walker Howard's the best quarterback on this roster. It's not close.
I would agree.
Close.
No, I would agree. But obviously, if you named him the starter, you would have Exodus, right? So he won't start this year. But I do agree. I'm a huge Walker stan, right?
Okay, my bad.
No. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm interested.
I just think that Walker Howard gives you the best ability next season to win a natty. That's my opinion.
Well, 2023 schedule sets up really nicely.
It does. I hope we play USC in 24 so we can kick the ever living brisket out of their ass.
It's that 2023 sets up really nicely. So
could you imagine if we beat USC and Lincoln Riley again that bad that he started sweating brisket sauce?
Hey, I don't know why brisket sauce.
You don't remember Lincoln Riley's brisket?
Lincoln Riley brisket, drier than the Sahara.
Let me tell you something. There's three things in this world that I will stop and eat one piece of just to see how good it is: brisket, pizza, spaghetti, Italiana, lasagna. That man, some very bad brisket in his day. Some very good brisket. Because he's not buying the cheap brisket. He's buying the good shit. He's buying the butcher style brisket. Anyway, I do want to get this to you though. Ask you this question. What do you think it means that LSU's outside the top 25 of this AP poll? I will say this. I do believe in history repeating itself. I do believe in it. The last time was 2000 under Nick Saban. What's your thoughts of LSU being on the outside? Life repeats itself, but that's my opinion. And we got some super chats in here we got to get to.
Yeah, going at Doug and Ed, man. I gotta love them.
Go ahead and get your take in. What do you think about that?
So first thing here is not only is LSU outside the top 25, SEC East champion Tennessee is outside the top 25 as well. So ready for it.
Hold on.
Be ready for it. I'm going to say it every
time. My poll today on Believe.
I saw that you had
said they were underrated, and I thought of you when I did it. So do you want to dispel your crazy argument about Tennessee?
Yeah. Okay. First thing is First thing. All right. I got to shout out Lamar on Facebook. Right. He said
pressure, big pressure.
No. When
okay.
Okay. I no, I don't know why this is so funny. Okay. He said, where do you get a piece of spaghetti from? And I was thinking that. I was thinking that when you said the one thing you said, and I was like, how do you get a piece of?
Yeah, that's pressure. That's pressure right there.
Listen. That's what I thought. And then I was like, wait, how do you get a piece of spaghetti?
So there's an Italian festival where I live, and you get small little bowls. Like sample bowls. I'm not getting one piece of spaghetti.
One piece. Yeah.
Like I want a meatball. Give me a meatball.
So C makes a good point in the chat. I do feel LSU next year in 2023, they're scheduled to set up really nicely for them. But obviously, we're talking about 2022. So obviously, I mentioned the bulletin board material. That's obviously great. But you look at, some of the other teams that are in that top 25. And I think there are some teams in the SEC that are overvalued. And I think there are some that are undervalued. I think Arkansas, I know Arkansas is a feel-good story and everybody feels really good about them. But they are one of the few teams that had 2 non-conference games this year. 2 of those teams are in the AP top 25, week 1 versus Cincinnati, and they have to go to BYU. They have to go to Provo.
Yeah, I think that's a trap game.
I mean, that's tough. Sataki's a really good coach up there. So, I
don't get the Mormons fired up either.
Yeah, and look, that's a tough team. And Texas A&M, while I think they're overvalued, it's not insurmountable for LSU to win that game. LSU's own Texas A&M, right? We all know Texas A&M is going to be exactly 8-3 going into that game. I hope they're not 7-4. You want Texas A&M to be exactly 8-3 because it's going to be a loss. It's going to be a loss. But LSU, you look at a lot of these teams. I look at a team like, Kentucky's not on the schedule. I think they're overvalued as well. Ole Miss is very experienced. Mississippi State's very experienced. Ole Miss hit the portal really, really hard. But a lot of those guys, Zach Evans is a really good player for them. I think a lot of these top 25 teams outside of Alabama, and once again, you get Alabama after a bye week in your building. So while LSU does have a lower floor than normal, and you do see the Action Network having LSU at 5 wins according to their projections, you do see some over-unders popping up at 6.5. This season could get very volatile, right, with the quarterback depth and all those different things. So, as of right now, I think you feel a little bit better as an LSU fan when you look at the rest of the SEC, but also you got to understand that there's just so many questions around this current LSU team as well.
Do you want to hear something very wild?
I want to hear.
Our good sponsor, they're right below your name in here on our overlay. LSU's win total on BetOnline went from 6.2 to 7.7 after the news today that Myles Brennan was stepping away.
Interesting. Do you think that's very interesting. I guess this was
I will tell you this from what I've been told. I am not a gambler like that. I hold too much money in my bank account. I got too many bills. You've been to my house. My wife likes expensive shit. Bottom line is they have more faith in Garrett Nussmeier and Jane Daniels than they did Myles Brennan. That's just the bottom line. I had one person that makes these lines a lot tell me today that if Jane Daniels starts, it would go up to 8.1.
Wow. I have a theory behind that.
Okay. Share your theory.
What I think happened is once there was a quarterback announcement that a lot of people were like, oh, okay, well, let me go look at the over-under for LSU. Wait, LSU's at 6.5, 7?
I started betting the shit out of it, didn't I?
Yeah, I think that's why part of the reason. So I don't want anyone to think that someone thought that Jaden Daniels is like worth 2 wins more. I just think more people went to bet it. I will say this, right? One of my sharpest analytic friends who does help with coaching searches sent me a message over the weekend saying that he does like the over at 6.5 at LSU, which is very, very interesting, right? We're all excited about this Florida State game. That's going to determine a lot of how, the season goes. If LSU wins that game, you feel a lot more comfortable about the over. If LSU doesn't win that game, you start wondering where's everyone's head going to be, because, you're going to have a locker room of a 2020 recruiting class that was really, really good that would have lost their 3rd consecutive season opener. And that is honestly, quite sad. So we'll see what happens on September 4th.
So I'm going to tell you my biggest surprise this camp, and I want you to tell me, what have you seen around this camp so far? For me, the 2 young men that have stood out the biggest play on opposite sides of the ball at the same kind of, then they battle a lot. I'll start with Kobe Richardson, number one. He's locking down Kayshawn. And I called you after the scrimmage, and I told you, I don't know who this young man is. He doesn't even have a bio on LSU's website. But for the love of it, he locked Kayshawn down like his name was Akon. Got locked up, won't let me out. Kayshawn got locked up. The biggest player in this camp that has made the biggest impact, and everybody's talking about, is Malik Neighbors. When I say that about Malik, are you surprised? Because I'm not really, but are you surprised that he's nothing but the talk of the camp outside of quarterbacks?
He is. And one thing I like about Malik Neighbors is he's really good at getting other people open as well. He draws a lot of coverage. It's very
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot that you like, right? And that's one of it. He's a good teammate. When he was hurt to start last year, he was oftentimes the first person off the bench to celebrate with teammates. That's obviously, a big plus. Also, Malik Neighbors is one of these guys that we were very lucky to get in the class when he came out. Obviously, JoJo Earl going to Alabama, open up that slot.
Give me Malik.
Malik all day. And I was super high on JoJo Earl coming out. Malik all day. And, this is a guy that's gotten to experience a lot of fun things in his life. These kids look up to Odell Beckham. Got to meet him when I was in LA. It was a big moment for him, right? And now just through camp.
So they went out to LA with a quarterback on LSU's roster and the wide receivers were there?
Yeah. It's perplexing, right? But yeah,
I'm putting you in so many bad situations tonight with sourcing. It's unreal. I apologize, but I will make you a brother.
It's fine. Look, Malik's really good, right? He's looked better and better. Had a really good spring game, getting other people open as well. And that's one thing I've always noticed about him. Even in, I did a long Myles Brennan film study on a throw he had to Jure. Once again, Malik drew the coverage, right? He's really good at that. I don't know if it's a certain skill set that allows people, to gravitate towards him, to open other people up, but he's really good. Like he's a guy that, is fine if he doesn't get the football as long as we're moving the football. But I'm still ready to see a healthy Jack Besh. I can't wait for him to get.
He was out there today.
He was out there today. He's got his helmet back on. He's getting back to where, he needs to be. And obviously BTJ's had a really good camp as well. That long, dig route that Jaden threw to Kyron Lacy. BTJ.
Oh my God, it was so good.
It was good. But BTJ put a nasty move on Jarek Bernard Converse, and he also got open. And this is really good. And I think a major takeaway is going to be is Jure's still going to play some. I mean, I would guess. So, how does Kyron Lacy fit into that? How does healthy Chris Hilton fit into that? I'm very interested to see how Cortez Hankton works at wide receiver rotation, because if Malik is a stud and if Jack makes the jump and we know Kayshawn's going to get back to Kayshawn, how do you fit in BTJ into all of this? So, we'll see what happens. And Blake, my guy that I'll mention is Mason Taylor, right? This is a tight end room that is wide open. It's wide open, right? We know Cole Taylor has some issues blocking, and he's probably not as good a receiver as Mason Taylor is right now. You got Jack Mashburn, you got Nick Storrs. Those guys are more blockers than they are receivers. And I feel like Mason Taylor's got a lot of potential. I really liked him coming out.
He gained 25 pounds.
Gained 25 pounds. Obviously, we know the genetics are there. And, he played at St. Thomas Aquinas. You play good football players. Deshaun Womack's best play on tape is when he took Mason Taylor head up in the hole and made a big play versus St. Thomas Aquinas. So, for me, Mason Taylor's been the guy that's kind of stood out. True freshman tight ends, it's difficult. We saw Brock Bowers have the season he had. Mason Taylor's probably not that good, but he's going to get the opportunity. He's going to get a Brock Bowers type of opportunity. And if he seizes it, he could be a 3-year starter at tight end.
Mason's biggest play for Mason Smith was not a catch, was not a route ran. It was his blocking against B.J. Ojulari and Ali Gay. I think, what is going to separate him, because here's the thing. He's not a good blocker yet. He's a willing one. Okay, meaning, and Carter, you know this more than anybody because you do the film study. It's not going to be perfect, right? The scheme that you're running is never perfect, ever. It never happens. The times that it does, you score touchdowns. It's very rare. All I need, and I think that this is why his football IQ is so high. B.J. Ojulari beat him on the outside, and it was his man. You know what he did? He just washed him out of the play. Now, B.J., obviously in contain, wants John Emery to cut back, which he did. Right. It doesn't matter. When you're that physically able to push B.J. Ojulari out to the sidelines, you'll be fine.
Right.
Last thing, and I'm getting you out of here.
Yeah, it's fine.
My name is Blake Ruffino, and I apologize for not fully believing you about Harold Perkins. I believed you. I thought he was good. I didn't think he would see this much playing time with the twos, but as white people around the world will say that are in accounting, good googly moogly.
Yeah, Blake, he's one of the best high school football players I've ever seen. I mean,
he tracked down John Emery 3 times in the scrimmage.
He's really good. I mean, he's just really, really good. And you know, when I watched him for the first time, you know, I just don't know if I've ever seen anything like that guy. And the weirdest thing was, I remember writing down in like a pad or somewhere, I don't know what position this guy's going to play, but he's really good at football. And sometimes it's, you know, we get down into like different breakdowns of different plays and you should have been here, you should have been there. Sometimes it's just as simple as either you got it or you don't. It's either you're special or you're just ordinary. It's either you're going to get drafted in the early 3 rounds or you're updating your LinkedIn profile to work in construction. You know, Harold Perkins is the real deal. He's one of the best high school recruits I've ever seen. I look at all the 5 stars every year, and I looked at Walter Nolan. I looked at all these other guys. And even when he chose Texas A&M, I was like, this guy's still the best. And when he chose Texas A&M, you know, I was hearing it's not over. And I was just hoping. I was like, Blake, please let this guy go to LSU. And, you know, obviously,
you put it on your Christmas list. You got it.
And no one player is a must get. I never will say anyone's a must get, but he's crucial. When you have that level,
so good. He's so good. I saw 5 minutes of him, and I looked at a certain SID, and it said, "That's all I got to see."
That's just crazy.
I walked off, and they started giggling. I swear to God. Carter, rapid fire. Let's get to some of these super chats, and I'll let you go. I forgot about them. Ed says, #Ask Carter, does this make a red shirt not available to Walker Howard? And thank you for the $10.
Yeah, no, Ed's a big time supporter of all LSU YouTubers. And yeah, I will say this. Walker will be able to maintain his red shirt. I don't think Garrett's going anywhere. I could be totally wrong about this. I could be. Gotten to know a few people close to us. I feel pretty comfortable that even if Jaden is a guy and he goes out there and wires to wire versus Florida State, Nuss still has 4 years to play for, right? I feel pretty good about Nuss hanging around. I hope that might just be hopeful me. I feel pretty good about that. So Walker will be able to maintain his red shirt.
Doug Nose says, since it's $4.99, better find a transfer because it's gonna be only Walker and Collins in the QB room in the spring of 2023. Do you believe that? Obviously, you don't. With you thinking Garrett might stick around.
Yeah, obviously, you know, it changes. If Walker beats out, you know, Garrett going into next year, Garrett will transfer. All right, that's just the truth. Especially, you know, with Ricky Collins being in there. Ricky's really good, right? I think, you know, this was a really sneaky good Louisiana quarterback class.
Dude, they're killing it.
Well,
if they get some Lance Hurd,
yeah,
color me pink.
What's very interesting, Blake, is there.
I couldn't handle the laugh. I'm sorry. Continue.
No, I will say this. Okay, I'm not as high on this kid as much, but I do want to make like one Louisiana high school football quip here. The Tay kid at Scotlandville, the lefty. He's a crafty left-handed quarterback. He's a very, very interesting player. I can't pronounce his first and and last name correctly. So I'm just going to call him Tay. That's just what everyone calls him. It's a very interesting player. He's got a lot of potential. So we could look at this crop of Louisiana quarterbacks, with Ricky as well. I personally still like Ricky the best. I know he picked LSU, and that's what you should say, but I do like Ricky a lot.
Why do you like him the best?
Well, Ricky's got a special arm. So, for me, he's got some real pop to his game. You also look at what he's played with at Woodlawn. Woodlawn's a very talented team. Don't get it twisted. He's playing in a lot of games where the other team had way more talent, right? I know Jordan Matthews. I know Jordan Matthews is going to Tennessee, and he's a really good football player. But Ricky has had to make a lot of plays in some very hellacious spots. Okay, his film's really good. I know his numbers don't just blow you away, but if you actually watch him, a lot of his plays aren't, receivers with like ridiculous yak after the catch. A lot of he makes a lot of things happen. He's gritty. He's tough. By all accounts, he works hard. And, I do like Ricky a lot, and I've liked him even more knowing that at these Elite 11s and in these camp settings, he's just come out and just balled out of control.
One thing for me about Ricky, we talked about this on the show. I talked to you about this off air. I'll mention it here. And I can't do it here. He's got to go here, right? Like he's got to go here. And to everybody on XM Radio and audio podcast, I apologize. Watch YouTube, subscribe. He goes down, up, hips, throw. You got to be able to, in all one motion, you got to be able to just throw it. I mean, you got to be able to step back, hitch, and be able to pop the hips like your name's Dak Prescott and release it. So one thing, but here's the crazy thing. If Phillip Rivers can do it, throwing sounded like he's on Pornhub.com. Shout out to Pornhub. But if he can do that, I think Ricky will be okay. Last one for you, Carter. I'm getting you out of here.
That's fine.
How do you think Cole Taylor's looking? Blanche Hudson sends us $10.
Yeah, Blanche has been with me for a while. I'm hopeful for Cole. When I watched him initially, I thought he was always going to be a year 3 guy. And Cole's a good Tiger. Obviously, no matter what he does, he'll always be remembered for the shoe, the cleat.
No doubt.
But, for me, I hope we see a more physical Cole. And this is why, I bring up Mason Taylor. This is a pretty big opportunity for Mason Taylor. I don't think anybody's going to be just blown away by Cole Taylor. He's a good Tiger. I'm cheering for him. But Mason's got a big opportunity right here. And he was a fallen enrollee, right? So it's very interesting. I'm crossing my fingers here on Cole. He had a good spring game. But at the same time, this tight end room is still wide open. And Brian Kelly and Mike Denbrock like to run no less than 11. They're not a 10. They're not really 10 personnel kind of guys. I'm not saying that they won't, but they like to have a tight end on the field. And to get into a quick little X's and O's thing right here, Denbrock likes to go 3x1, 2x2 by just motioning the tight end to create numbers on both sides of the line of scrimmage. There's actually lectures he's done on this topic with this RPO game.
He did it all day long in that scrimmage, by the way, to confirm your point.
There's lectures on this. Isn't me just saying this. There's lectures on him talking about this on YouTube, right? Mm-hmm. I think they prefer a tight end to be on the field. So once again, golden opportunity.
They went doubles on multiple first downs out of the pistol. Okay, first play, Carter. You know me, and I'm loud, and I'm abrasive, and I'm stupid. Yeah. I scream. You know me, and they got on my ass a little bit, and I apologized. I screamed, "Spider 2, white banana!" And they hit Colt, and they hit Mason Taylor in the flat, and Denbrock looks at me. He does this. I'm like, "Hey, man,
Spider 2, white banana!
Spider 2, white banana!" All right, you're my best friend in the world. I love you. Peace out, Girl Scout. We'll see you next Monday for sure.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon. Let's go. Let's go, Tigers.
That's my good buddy, Carter, the Power Bryant. You know what we're going to do, Zach? We have gone very over. So let's do this. You want to end it? You got to like go to a girlfriend's house or anything, Zach? Oh, she's waiting for you. Oh, she cooked red beans. Okay. All right, let's do this. Let's go ahead and end it. Guys, we will be back tomorrow. Wednesday night's going to be a huge show as we're going to be breaking down the scrimmage. But until then, y'all have a good night. Peace out, Girl Scouts.